Welcome to In Pursuit 360. And today we are talking about taking that, dreaded psych test. Yeah, the psych test. Psychological evaluation, take your pick. Psych test, psychological evaluation, kind of the same thing. So, what to expect and what can I tell you to kind of help get you through it? Here we go. Let's get into it. All right, here we go. Welcome back again to In Pursuit 360. And today we're talking about that dreaded psych test. A lot of times, a lot of agencies use what's called the MMPI, um, anywhere from 4 to 780 or 820 some questions. It's kind of crazy. Followed up usually by a talk with some kind of a psychologist or a doctor that will evaluate the answers that you provided during this test, and talk to you about that kind of stuff. So, in the hiring process, the psychological evaluation can fall anywhere depending on the agency that you go to. Some agencies do it earlier, some agencies do it later. And then you have to sit there and kind of figure out, like, what do I tell them? Do I tell them this? Do I tell them that? How do I answer this? How do I answer that? So it's really not a lot different than the polygraph or the voice analysis, whatever agency is using for your lie detector or whatever. Um, so your psych, you need to understand what they're really asking. Okay, so when they ask you, this is one of my favorite questions, and I thought about it when Lord only knows how many times I've taken the MMPI between law enforcement and private security jobs. Um, was Do you see things that most other people don't? Do you see things that most other people don't? So, if you think about it from a law enforcement perspective, or if you're trying to be really impressive, do you see things that other people don't? Well, I'm a lot more observant than other people. I notice things that other people don't notice. I notice when somebody's acting a little funny. I notice when maybe somebody walks in and they're nervous while they're standing at the cashier because I think maybe they might be getting ready to rob the store because of the way they're acting, their heart rate, the sweat, all that. That's not what they're asking in the psych test. What they're asking you is kind of like the Sixth Sense movie. Do you see dead people? Do you see things that other people don't? Remember, you're taking a psych test. You're not taking a what are your qualifications to be a law enforcement officer test. You're taking a psych test, a psychological test. Do you see dead people? Do you see imaginary figures like, you know, fairies and gnomes and little things like that flying around and fluttering around that other people don't see, right? So you're taking a psych test. That's what they're asking you. Be mindful of the questions that you're answering. Um, so the MMPI test, the actual written test that you have to take, it'll blow your mind. It takes 2 to 3 hours depending on how many questions that there are. Um, and they're like one sentence questions. They're not complicated questions, but you'll find that they're different variations of the same question over and over again. Do you hate your mother? No. And then later on it'll say, do you love your mother? Well, what if there were some issues and you just kind of liked her? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But do you do you wish do you wish that, I don't know, your mother wasn't as big a part of your life as she is? Whatever. And those aren't exact questions. I'm just trying to give you an example of how many different ways they ask the same damn question. So, do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you dislike them? Do you love them? You know what I'm saying? So they'll ask that same question in a multitude of ways, because if you're really not aware of what you really feel and what you think, you're going to vary in these answers. And that's kind of how they decide what they may or may not need to talk to you about. But the first thing is, first off, don't think it's a am I qualified to be a police officer test based off of what I observe or what I think. It's, are you psychologically fit, right? So think about the questions that way. Don't read too much into this crap. do you see things that other people don't? They mean literally, do you see things that other people don't? Like, woo, right? So that's what they're talking about. They are not talking about, are you more observant than other people? Because that would be the question. Are you more observant? No. Do you see things that other people don't? Believe it or not, it'll ask you things like, do you like the devil, or do you believe that that evil is good? Do you believe it'll ask you all these really goofy things that you're going to sit there and go, are you kidding me? But you need to take it seriously, because that's what they're looking for. They are looking for somebody that's going to go, well, sometimes evil's good, bloop, right? That's like, ding, we need to pay attention to this. So when you're taking the psychological test, those are things you need to think about. The second part of the psychological is the interview with the psychologist. So they're going to ask you things, well, first of all, based off your answer. Well, you said you see things that other people don't. You say, well, I'm more observant. Well, what do you mean by more observant? Well, I noticed like suspicious behavior, or, one time I was in a store and I saw this, and I knew that there was going to be trouble. So I got my family out of there as soon as I could. And sure enough, that the person ended up robbing, whatever, right? You might be able to explain that off, but there's going to be something that they're going to key off of. What do you mean you see things that other people don't? And they're going to dig into that a little bit. And don't be afraid of it. If you answered it that way because that's what you thought, then go ahead and go with that feeling, right? Or go ahead and go with why you answered the way you did. Another thing that they're going to ask about, like traumatic events that occurred in your life. Have you ever received any kind of psychological care? Are you currently under psychological care anywhere? Are you currently seeing a counselor? If so, what for? There was somebody that I've talked to recently that I've made it no secret. I've been diagnosed with serious PTSD. Somebody that I talked to that also suffered from PTSD, that was right at the end of their, in the military. While you're getting out, you get X number of counseling sessions that are included, and they help you try to work problems out and try to get yourself squared away and all that stuff. And they simply, it's not that they needed it anymore. They had understood where their PTSD came from. They knew what they were doing to cope with it. They knew ways to cope with it in the future. Everything was good, but they had like 4 or 5 sessions left. And they're like, well, why am I going to throw this away? And so they kind of like kept going. Well, it just so happened to be that it was during an application process. So when he talked to the doctor, he's like, yeah, hey, diagnosed with PTSD. I'm seeing this Army counselor, this military counselor. And this is what we talk about. This is what's going on. This is what caused it. This is how I cope. This is how I do this. But because he answered it that way, they said, oh, currently under, psychiatric care, currently under counselor care or whatever. And they said, not disqualified, bloop, and marked him off. Now, I'm not telling you to lie about any of that, but you need to be aware. If you're currently seeking counseling, if you're currently talking to somebody about some kind of life issue or some things that you've been through and things like that, if you're going into this law enforcement thing, you need to get it wrapped up, okay, to eliminate that possibility of it interfering with your chances. Now, I'm not telling you that that if it's a maintenance thing, right, you've already dealt with all the primary issues, and you're just using it as like a mental maintenance. You're not really under their care, but you use it just as kind of like a monthly check to make sure that everything's going okay and whatever. If you can explain that and talk about it that way, then that would be fine. If you're actually under care, if you're actually on medications, you probably need to wrap that up before you get to that part of a law enforcement psychological test and interview. I'm not saying it's an automatic, like, no, you're not gonna get it, but there are some departments that basically say, well, if they're currently undergoing this treatment, then maybe we need to look at people that aren't undergoing this treatment because there's less of a risk, less of a liability. So kind of keep that in mind in where you're at in your treatment and what it is that you're doing with your life. And I'm not telling you that this is an automatic no-go. What I'm telling you is that you need to be aware of where you are, and you need to be aware of how you are going to talk about what it is that you've been through. So I can tell you that if you've wrapped up your counseling, you're done with it, there are things that they're going to want to know. Like, well, what do you think that your triggers are? What is it that you've learned about yourself and what you've been through in the past? What are your triggers? And how do you react to your triggers? What coping skills have you learned in order to deal with these without reverting back to any issues that you may have had in the past? What issues did you have in the past because of your PTSD? Mine, I was self-medicating. I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I abused it, right? I was an alcohol abuser. So um, I self-medicated to get through my issues. It caused a lot of trouble. I didn't have withdrawal symptoms or anything like that, but I certainly caused some issues within my family based off of my abuse of alcohol. So, what were your issues while you were struggling through this PTSD thing? And then what did you do to resolve it? How do you cope with it on a day-to-day now? What did you find? What do you do to prepare yourself to deal with any future issues or any future things that may come up in PTSD? Because think about it, law enforcement, in the job of law enforcement, you deal with the evil and the darkness of society on a daily basis. Regular civilians out there in the world, they go to work every day, they come home, they have dinner with their family, they kiss their kids goodnight, they go to sleep, they get up, they do it all over again. You're going to get up, kiss your family goodbye, put on a bullet resistant vest. I didn't say proof, I said resistant. Bullet resistant vest, put on a badge that everybody hates you for, and you're going to go out there and you're going to deal with dirtbags and rapists and pedophiles and people that abuse their wives and girlfriends and car accidents with mangled bodies and suicides and homicides every day. You're going to deal with that every day. So if you're already dealing with something, how are you going to add all that on top? What is your coping skill? Physical fitness? Physical fitness is actually a good coping skill for PTSD issues because the more fit your body is, the better your body is able to process the chemicals and stuff that are created by your body when you're under a lot of stress. All right, so physical fitness is a big deal. And you got to be able to talk to somebody. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife? Are you talking to a family member? Do you have a former coworker, former military member? Do you have an officer from a former department that you work for that you both, like, you get together every week and you talk about what's happening, you talk about things you're going through? Is your significant other able to hear you talk about things that mentally affect you? I came in one night after almost being killed, getting run over, and my car was demolished and in the shop. And I just walked in and told my wife, I'm like, hey, when you walk out and go to work this morning, my car is not in the driveway; it's in the shop. I got hit by a truck. What? Why didn't you call me? I'm like, no big deal. It was a pursuit. Guy hit my car. Not a big deal. All done. Well, no, the guy almost killed me. I was like, yay close. If I wouldn't have dove back into my car, he would have crushed me between his truck and my car. So, but I blew it off. I didn't talk about it. And I did that with everything I did: suicides, homicides, decaying bodies, car accident mutilations, whatever. And I never talked about it to anybody because it just wasn't what you did. But it's what you need to do. If you want to cope with these things, it's what you need to do. So I know I'm getting all that. I mean, it's all about the psych test, right? But it's about the psych interview. And if you've had PTSD before, or even if you haven't, they may ask you, well, it's a very violent job that you're getting ready to go into. What do you think you're going to do to prepare for this? Physical fitness, and have somebody to talk to, whether it be a coworker, a family member, a best friend, a significant other. You've got to be able to talk. You can't bottle this stuff up inside. You need to realize that if suddenly your drinking seems to pick up, that this could be a self-medication issue and you need to go talk to somebody. You need to be able to acknowledge that you're not invincible, right? None of us are Superman. We all need help from time to time. We all need somebody to talk to. So you need to be able to fess up to. You need to be human, right? That's what a good police officer is human. They feel things, right? They see things, they react. We have to have some way of being able to deal with this stuff. Um, and if you meet anybody that says, "Oh no, that shit don't bother me," you need to rethink that relationship because they're full of crap. And if it really doesn't affect them, then maybe there is something not quite right up there. It affects all of us. It affects all of us that deal with this stuff. So anyway, all right. So that's the psychological test. That's the interview. Be honest. Um, and if you're in counseling, try to finish that up before you go into this psych test or this psych interview. And if not, then hopefully it's a maintenance part. Make sure you can even tell your counselor, "Hey, I'm applying for this law enforcement agency. If you think I'm ready, I'd like to leave treatment and turn this into a maintenance meeting. Maybe we can do this once a month just for maintenance of how things are going." And then that way you can answer that question honestly. "Hey, I was in counseling in reference to this, and now it's just kind of like a maintenance thing. I just go back just to make sure that everything's going right and things like that. But it's not currently under care. It's more of a they're maintenance meetings that I do once a month." Something to think about. All right. So anyway, so I appreciate you wanting to be part of law enforcement. I certainly want to do everything I can to help you get there. So do me a favor, go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. A lot of videos that I'm trying to put out or that I have already put out about the interview process, the hiring process, and things like that that I'm trying to share with you. Hit the bell notification. You'll know when the next video is coming out. Thumbs up would be awesome. Thumbs down if you have to, but tell me why. Say that. Say that during every video. If you give me a thumbs down, I'm cool with that. But tell me why. What is it you'd like to see? Any other topic ideas, questions you've run into during interviews, or anything about the hiring process, leave it down in the comments. I'll try to address it in a video if I don't respond directly to your comment. SpartanTrainingSystems.com, link down below. They over there, I do like free consults, 15-minute consult. And if you want some coaching or stuff like that for an interview coming up, I do that too. Yeah, I charge a little bit of money, make a little side money or whatever. But I also do interview coaching. And then also nextleveltraining.com. When you get to the firearms part of your academy or whatever, or training, and you want to know anything at all about, trigger press, sight picture, sight alignment, stuff like that, nextleveltraining.com. In Pursuit 059 is a discount code. Get 10% off. You can get yourself a nice little SIRT pistol with a working magazine. And it's got little laser lights here that you can use to practice your trigger press and all that good stuff. So anyway, I appreciate you tuning in. I really thank you for being here. In the meanwhile, please, we need some really good people in law enforcement. I hope you keep pursuing your dreams. And in the meanwhile, be safe out there.